Hi everyone, the Mature Simmer here. Welcome to another how-to lesson for Railroute. So if you're here, you want to understand the basics of the game, basically how to get things moving, how to set up routes, and how to get trains moving along. To effectively do this tutorial, I've had to play ahead, spend a lot of time on a map to get enough of a network built out that I could then manipulate it and get some things done to show for you. You're going to see things here on the map that are certainly more advanced or further ahead than you would starting out. But in the interest of keeping these videos short and to the point, this was the best way I felt I could do this. If you'd like to see things used in gameplay and understand how they work, certainly check out some of the gameplay videos that I've got on the channel. The base points of the game are you've got track, you've got signals, and then how they meet determine switch points. When you click on a signal, you'll see it goes green, but it only goes green where it can go. So because this switch is not set right, at this point if a train was to come onto this segment, we'd have a penalty because it would be going through a switch location that it can't go through. It's also important to understand that the flat end is the way the signal is facing, which means this signal is blocking access to this segment between the next signal. Let's see what happens. So you can see it ignores this signal, and the reason for that is it's a not acting signal. The path is created in the opposite direction. So if I right-click to turn it off, you can see the flat end is facing in the opposite direction. If I go into the build mode and reverse it, now when I click on this, you'll see it just makes this block green. Similarly, if I click here, even though it traced up a route, it's only green here because, again, I have a switch set incorrectly. So I'll right-click to turn that off. I'll right-click to turn that off as well. So you can see as you click on tracks, they'll switch based on what options they have available to them. An intersection like this is more complex, so here we have two switch settings. Here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we're back here. So we have 4 switch settings in an intersection like this. So another way to think about it is a track that comes up to another track but does not cross that track has 2 switch settings. A track that comes up to the track but does cross, such as here, or here, and we'll go here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we're back again. So if the tracks cross, you're going to have 4 switch settings. If they don't cross, you're going to have 2. So another decision point you're going to have to make with signaling is where exactly do you put your signals and what do you want them to do? Keep in mind that the block goes from the signal to the next signal that's facing in the same direction. So in this case, from here to here. And then you have to re-signal. So if we signal from here, I'm going to wait, and you can think about where is this going to open up to. I've gone ahead and set the switches so that we don't have a switch problem. But if you've guessed right, it should be through the tail end of station 4. Because as you can see, that's the next signal that faces in the same direction. These are now non-acting that are in the opposite direction. So you can always test that. You can do things in pause, and I suggest as you're starting out getting used to the game, it doesn't hurt anything. It's your sim. Play it the way that makes sense for you. And if you need to stop and think things through and try things out before you get trains moving again, go ahead and do that. I've gone ahead and gotten a train coming out and moved forward. I've paused it again so we can see. On trains, you're going to see the stations that it's expecting to go through along with the platform numbers. So we're coming in on platform 3 here. We're going to go to Charlottenburg, which is here, onto platform 4, and then we'll be returning onto platform 3. Down in this space, you can see a textual representation of the information where it's going to tell you exactly the timetable that this train is going to travel. So you can see it stops for basically a minute at each location, including this one. It hasn't gotten to the stop yet. The direction the headlight is shining is the direction the train is moving. That's going to be important here because trains need to be reversed. At this point, I have an auto reverse. This is an upgrade to automation. So you won't have this initially, but at this point, this train is going to behave as if I didn't have an auto reverse anyway. But what you need to do, think of a sequence when you're playing, is you want to set switches and then set signals. Because if you don't set switches, as you saw, it'll trace up the line. So if I go here, for example, and I don't have that switch set, you'll see that if you click this, the little electric charge flies up the line. I think of this as a circuit in a lot of cases, so it's almost like a circuit diagram. I need to have circuits set appropriately. And since they've modeled it to look like electricity, it works out well. It'll show you where you would go if you had the switches set appropriately. Keep in mind, here it only has one place to go, but here we've got multiple options. So if I had triggered this and I do this, you'll see it does follow what I have done, but when it's open, it just takes the route that it chooses to take. I would assume a straight line. The other thing to keep in mind is you cannot adjust switches when you've signaled and in essence locked the block. So it'll tell you here that it's locked. Here I can change that and then it'll add it in, but once I've added it in, I can't remove it unless I go ahead and turn that signal off. So again, we want to go from Rulben to Charlottenburg, back to Rulben, basically straight down this track and then back. And once again, you have that information there. So I've set switches, first switches, then signals. So I go ahead and do that. I don't want to go past that, so I don't need to open the signal there and go. So at this point, we'll let the trains move. And you can see it's telling me stopping at station. So it's important to also understand what the train's doing at various points. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off so I can show you the behavior that you need to be aware of as well. Actually, well, we'll turn all these off because it'll show you what happens if you don't set the switches. I'm going to speed this up so that our wait time drops a little faster and we don't have to wait a minute and a half to get there. So the train's going to start moving in the direction of the headlight, and you're going to see it speed up. And then at a certain point, when the engineer has to react, just as if you were driving a train, you can see it's now stopping at the signal. So I'm going to now clear this. But that is important to note when you're playing scenarios where you're being judged on your timing. You may at times get penalized. So for timetable maps, for example, you'll get penalized if a train has to start braking for a signal if you haven't set the signals fast enough that it can just keep moving, especially if the train is in a passing configuration. So at this point, we're going at the top speed of the rail I have installed, which is 80. And it's going to go ahead and run through. And you can see when it's on a segment, it goes red. But it also frees up the segment faster so that if there was a train behind, I could go ahead and immediately start getting it on the track, especially if I'm going somewhere else. Now, once again, to avoid penalties, at times you'll want to be careful that the full block is clear before you clear another train on it. Right, so it's stopping at the station here, and even though there's auto reverse, you can see the headlight is there. I need to manually reverse, so you can right click or you can hit this reverse button. And then we need to, again, switches, which we don't have to adjust, and then signals. And we can see we have a train here that actually wants to go, but the way freights work, we have a bigger timetable. So that does raise another point. If I sent this train and then sent this train, once it goes through the green signal on a manual signal, on any signal, the train is going to continue. So if they meet here at the same point, they will crash and your scenario will be over. So one of the questions to consider with signaling is, where do you place the signals? You typically want signals where you're going to need to stop trains so that they avoid collisions. I decided to put opposing signals here between my crossovers so that if I needed to, I could stop a train instead of having it route through. Alright, at this point I've converted my map to automatic signaling. Now I'm going to show you how automatic signaling works and how it differs. We'll cover the routing queue upgrade in a different lesson. So to use auto signals, you do need to have upgraded to automatic routing. When you do that, that will unlock auto signal in your controls and you're able to buy them. And so if you recall in the manual signaling, when I wanted to set the route, I had to turn every signal manually until I had my route green. With automatic signaling, I click the signal and then I pick the route I want it to go on, and it does the rest, including changing switches. So I've gone ahead and turned off the signals. If I select my auto signal, go this way, and then take me to Route 3, you can see it changes everything accordingly, including the switches. So with automatic signaling, you don't have to worry about switches, then signaling. You can just signal and select points. So that should be enough to give you a basic understanding of signaling. As always, if you have any questions, please drop them below and I'll do my best to answer them. I'll see you next time.